Okay, so let me get these off. Today I want to talk about the four different kinds of roles you would have as a graphic designer or working in branding. So they would be, first off, I wrote on the post-it note so don't fuck it up because it's a one take, that you'd work for an agency. So if you're coming out of art school, you're predominantly going to want to try and work at an agency. It's where you can work with the big clients, big budgets, and learn. You get really close to the action. And the good thing about that is there's resources. So there's money, there's actual budgets, which when you're starting out, if you just go straight into doing things on your own terms, it's just hard to learn from the best. And I think when you're graduating, the best thing to do, if you are listening to this and you are graduating, is go and get as close as you possibly can to one, the resources, two, the experience, and three, the action, whatever industry you're in. Okay, so that's the first one. Second one would be that you would run your own agency. So you would work at an agency and then go and leave and start your own. So usually you'd call that a studio, can be an agency, but typically people who go in agencies, usually they go and call it a studio because it's boutique, 1 to 12 people. And you basically do the same thing, but you take all of your expertise and usually you specialized. The other one is that maybe you go a different route. You don't have to go through agency, and then you go and work in-house. So you go work product side. Some industries call it different, but like 10 years ago, in-house didn't really exist apart from maybe the big dogs like the Nikes and stuff like that. But in-house design teams have actually got really good over the last couple of years. I've been lucky enough to work on a few, and brands finally worked out if they hire a sick designer, they don't have to hire a design agency. So that's quite cool. And then the final one would be freelance. So, or consulting. In graphic design or branding terms, you usually say freelance, but you can also be a brand consultant. But I think that has a little bit more business acumen baked into the kind of title. And, we all love our own titles. Now, I think I currently freelance. That's predominantly what I do. I worked in agency for 5 years and then went freelance in 2016, graduated in 2011. And I worked my way up in that full-time job from intern, junior, middleweight to senior, and then left. I went traveling for a bit, came back, started freelancing, and then I've done that for 8 years now. So I've worked at probably 20 to 25 agencies and maybe 2 to 3 in-house design teams for a product side. And agencies are great. I mean, I said it in the first video, but I guess I am an agency man. What are the downsides of that? I'm NDA'd up to the eyeballs, which is tricky. There's a lot of people on, design Twitter is rife about sharing your work right now. Some of the work I'll work on, sometimes they have to build the website or do the guidelines and they have to go and launch it or sell it into their investors or whatever. It depends on the project. But obviously then the agency wants to do a press release and your name's not going to be on it because they bought your time, they bought your allegiance, and you go in and work. And yes, you get to work on these cool jobs, you get a cool portfolio piece, but I can't just put that work on my portfolio on my website as soon as I leave. There's a little grey area where you can put it on your portfolio that's not online. Hence, you have to kind of get my portfolio by getting in touch, which maybe is probably an old model, but everyone who's just got their portfolio on their website, I guarantee they're working for startup Series A, Series C companies, or they're doing little projects with an already launched brand. Like that's my experience. Maybe I'm wrong there, but you just can't whack stuff up on the internet, as far as I'm aware. But having a PDF of all your stuff later on, yes, PDFs are a bit dead, but I have Google Slides, so I update it and it has GIFs. But that's kind of the downside. Although you get close to the resources, you get close to the budget, you get close to the action, and you get to learn loads. You get to learn how loads of different agencies do their pitch decks. Like I definitely learned my foundational stuff when I was in my full-time job, and then when I've been to quite a lot of agencies, and you get to look at how they build strategy, how they do their pitch deck, how they do their where we are, where we're going, and what's in the way. What their pillars are, how they talk about the promise, how they talk about their value prop, how they do their messaging frameworks. And you'll be surprised, there's quite a lot out there. There's the classic triangle and then the triangle upside down. And then there's the promise and purpose and stuff. There's a lot of P's. There's a lot of P's in the strategic industry. but you get to learn that, and then you get to take the best bits, reshuffle some of the bits that work for you, and then you eventually have your own process. So me freelance now, like I have a complete custom way of doing things, and that's because I learned from the best, and then cherry pick the bits that worked, and then combine that with reading books, and then a few aha moments and a few bits of yourself, and suddenly you got your own process. Now, if you go into in-house straight away, now it's a bit different. So I think this information is probably a bit out of date. But in-house, usually for them to have a big design team, you're not really going to be doing the crazy stuff or not be pushing stuff. You're going to go really deep, like an inch wide and a mile deep, and learn about that product. And that can be really great. Especially, you'll probably be more of a killer in that idea going sniper, because then you'll be hyper qualified for that role, and it means you'll probably be able to move up the ranks, go to a new company and do that role again. Maybe obviously over time you can grow that and sort of widen your peripheral knowledge. But I would say if you're starting out, if you do go into the in-house and you've got to love the company, but hey, if you need a job, you need a job. But I do think agencies are good. And then the next one was starting your own agency. So it's quite big now. Again, design Twitter and where it's at is that a lot of people are running their own agencies. Some are subscriptions, although that kind of felt like that came in. I read loads about it, got really excited about it, and then it sort of disappeared off. Maybe the subscription is just not what the market wants. There's quite a lot of sprint agencies, creative sprint agencies. They're really cool. I love that model. If you, especially with a little nimble brand who maybe want to play around with something that's a bit different. So those kind of agencies really definitely are working. I guess I've had a few conversations with people on Twitter about this, but the problem is with that is when you're a one-man studio or a one-man band, you have a price point, you have a positioning problem, because let's just use arbitrary numbers, but let's say a brand rebrand or a brand refresh would cost, let's say on the low scale, 10 grand. And on the big scale, obviously sky's the limit, but let's say reasonable numbers, 40 to 50K, especially if you're doing one man 90-day plan, day rate or whatever. But if you charge more than 10, then unless you're really sought after in the business, so unless you're like shit hot or you've got a name or a following or demand, then what's going to happen is that they're just going to go and work for they're going to go and choose a small boutique agency that gets an account manager, creative director, a junior and a senior at the very least on that as well. So it's a good rollout, and you have a lot of minds, and they can come in and there's a physical place. I'm not saying that's for everybody, and some clients might really just like wanting to work with one person dialed. But really, typically, I'd say if you're doing you're probably going to be working for Series A, Series C stuff, launching existence phase brands, and that'll probably be like, I don't know, make $2 grand. Shouldn't really do anything less than that. To 7, maybe 8. I'm thinking pounds, so maybe it's a bit more in dollars. I can't change it. Sorry. So that's kind of interesting, and hopefully that works. The next one, I would say, yeah. So we've done freelance. It's great, but obviously you charge a day rate. You don't get any of the credit. You get loads of experience, but you don't get much of the kudos points, I guess. Well, you do maybe because you have it on your resume, but not on the internet. And we're in the age of attention, so people want to know that you've done stuff, and they want to know and track measurable metrics that mean something, that you can actually say, hey, I did this. And I worked on a big pharma rebrand, and it was my route that went through for the agencies, and we built it out, and I kind of did the preliminary guidelines before it went to the big team. And that pharmaceutical had some really good numbers, and that probably was a couple of 6-7 figures profit off the basis of the rebrand and the repositioning. I don't have the data for that. I don't know how to get involved in that. I wasn't in those conversations. They didn't have a rev share, or there was no rev share model which allowed me to track the data and get paid off the success. So it's tricky. There's trade-offs all the way down, as Sorrel says, one of the two. Let me check what I'm doing. So we've done that. In-house. Yeah, I think it comes down to, and it boils down to this whole having high agency and having low agency. I know it's kind of a bit of a wordplay, almost borderline pun, saying like working for an agency or having agency. But at the same time, like you want to try, there's a certain level of commercial quality that is required to get involved in agencies. They are the benchmark. They have been around. I know it is changing. I do think the agency model is a bit dead, or at least at the behemoths that they are right now, because budgets are a lot smaller and a lot of nimble startups and a lot of nimble ideas, especially with AI. You can have like 1 to 12 person businesses that are gigantic, and they just don't need to spend that much on big agencies. But at the same time, Koto is rebranding Kit, so ConvertKit is going to be working with them, and that was like a 300K job, and they were a small team. Now they're a massive team. So I think when it really comes down to the problem you're solving and the team you get amongst. But ConvertKit isn't going to work with one guy who's really active on Twitter, even if he's got a good portfolio. They want the reassurance, they want the clout, they want the experience. And if you can get aligned with somebody that's got really good industry clout and then go work for them, even if you're interning, and then just work your way up, you get exposed to that, you get exposed to the resources. The danger of staying in-house for too long, going back to that agency, low agency, high agency thing, is that when you get to a certain sized agency, they have production departments and artworking departments and retouching departments, and a lot of stuff you become a bit more of a cog, and you only are maybe working on the ideas, or you're only working on doing the graphics, and they'll have strategies, and then they'll have copywriters. So a lot of those jobs gets funneled out to somebody else or a specialist, which is tricky because you want to be a generalist at the start, definitely, and then specialize later. So you want to get experience with loads of things and see what you like. Average career has a couple of repositions where you find the thing that maybe you didn't do that's slightly adjacent or a couple of degrees to the right, and you go, oh my God, I'm going to do that. That's the one. So you want to bounce around. Yeah, I think designers, anyone who's listening to this who's doing what they're doing and grooving when they're grooving, fantastic. But I'd love to see if anyone is listening to this ever. Are you working for an agency? Do you run your own agency? Are you working in-house? Or are you freelancing and brand consultant? Or sometimes a hodgepodge of the two? Everyone has a side hustle and all that. This was a rambling one. We'll learn from it next time. Cheers. Also, do you like you're attached to my chair, so I can move you like I am wasting your time. See you again.